In this video, I'm going to be going over the new Bolt app from StackBlitz, which I've heard is all the rage, that it's really great for making full stack applications. And every day it seems like there's a ton of new coding applications or coding assistants that are coming out. And of course, for every new one that comes out, it seems like, or it is said that that one's better than the previous ones. But these are the things that I really care about at the end of the day, right? I know for a lot of you with AI, ChatGPT, all these code assistant tools, it seems super exciting to get into building tech products, especially if you don't have a lot of technical background. Now, this is true, but from what I've seen, it feels like the people that have benefited the most from these products are the people that already have very in-depth knowledge in technology. Now, that doesn't mean people that are getting into it can't benefit from it, but I think sometimes the way they're portrayed, it seems like it's overestimated, how much you can do if you don't really have a big skill set in that area. So these are the things that I'm curious about, right? Like, is the app beginner friendly, right? The other thing I want to know about is, user interfaces. How good is it going to be at making those user interfaces? The way the app looks, the way the app feels. How great is it going to make that? Is it going to be flexible on it? Is it just going to make some quick, crappy ones that don't work that well? That's that. The other part is databases. For any app that you make, any kind of software, you ultimately want to be able to store that data somewhere, whether that's user data or the kind of information that's being processed. You're going to have to interact with a database at the end of the day. Now, it seems like a lot of the applications don't necessarily do that, and you would need either a developer or some development experience to go in there and do that. The other one would be deployment. That is, if you build this application, you code it up, how easy or how difficult is it going to be for you to actually launch it so that you can sell it as a subscription, whatever it is. Deploying or launching it is also one of the things that may or may not be too easy to do within that product that you're buying. And of course, the last and probably the most important one is cost. A lot of these products, they're priced reasonably well, but I think if you have a ChatGPT subscription, you have a Cloud AI subscription, you have Cursor, Bolt, this and that, all that adds up very quickly. So I know it's something that you guys are also concerned about. So we're going to go ahead and get started right here. I'm on the free tier right now, and I've been using it for a little bit. I don't know how many credits I have left, but we'll try and knock it out. Something that I wanted to do to try this out was basically make a travel application. So for this travel app, I really want to be able to give it a range of dates where I'm traveling for, the destination that I'm going to, interest in activities. I like to go out and eat, so that's probably gonna be it. Restaurants, I already mentioned that, but to me, there's a part of eating because I have to, and then there's a part of eating for entertainment or to try something. And special events, right? If you're gonna be in a new town or new city, you might want to know what kind of events are going on, right? Now, I'm not super set on what kind of technology to use for this. It doesn't even necessarily need to have AI. If it did, that would be cool. But I just want to give it this very simple prompt and see where it goes from there. So we'll just say, I want to build a travel app. Here is what I want it to do. And that's not a super good prompt, but we'll see where it goes from here. And it seems like it's writing out the files pretty quickly. It already has the whole setup on here. I do like that it's going to let you switch between the code and the preview tab. And I think that's really nice that it's going through and installing the packages or what it will need in order to run this app. Something that I've noticed in some of the other videos I've seen is that usually with the first iteration of whatever you prompt it to, I've seen multiple people get errors right at the beginning, which I don't think that's a bad thing. It gets corrected pretty quickly, but I'm wondering if I'll get lucky and it'll run right away. Now, I didn't specify anything about how I want it to look like, so we'll see. So it says here, I've created a well-structured travel app with the following features: trip management, list of trips, add new trips, view trip details, core features, date range, destination input. So basically what we asked it for. So it tells us a little bit information about the code. So these are the different models, which I guess we see on here for the app models and services. And if we look at the preview, we're getting this message. So I'm assuming if we're doing this locally within our computer, it would just be something else we have to install, but we're working within their environment. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm just going to put, this is what I'm seeing. So the reply we got was, I noticed that we need to implement the navigation and dialog functionality to make the app fully functional. Let's break this down to smaller step, focus on components, and implement missing functionality. So we're still getting that, and we get a little bit more clarity on here. It says, to test the app, scan the QR code with your device's camera. Would you like to enhance any specific feature or add additional functionality? So I definitely don't want to get in the habit of using different devices for this. To me, the easier it is to use, probably just means I don't have to be hopping around between different programs or whatever. So let's see if we can get it to correct this or redo this. So I'm just going to put, I don't want to use native script. Let's redo the app in another stack, and let's see how much it likes or doesn't like that. So it says, I hope you build the travel app using React with Vi, TypeScript, and Tailwind CSS for a modern web application. Okay, cool. All right, so I went through that and it did it pretty quickly. It's a good list of commands, but we are getting an error here. So let's see what we need to do to troubleshoot that. It says here, click outside, press escape key, or fix the code issue. Well, I think it's just from the terminal here. Let's just put, I'm getting an error. And here it's already coming up with solutions. And it says, I notice we're missing the implementation of our main components. Let's create these components. Okay, cool. So I did a few changes, and I really like that it summarizes at the end what it ended up doing. And okay, it says development server should now be running and you can test the application. Would you like me to explain any specific part of the implementation or make adjustments? So this is running, no errors. We can click plan your first trip. So we're taking to this page that says plan trip. We can put where we're going here, activity name, category, description. Okay, cool. So I think this is almost like not necessarily a booking app, but almost like a log, right? Let's say we put Los Angeles and activity name. We put hot dogs, restaurant, eating a lot, and we could do add activity. And then it looks like it cleared it up. So let's try it again. Let's put LA food. Let's put McDonald's, rating 5, event, concert, and let's do, I don't know why we have these buttons. Right now I cleared it. So let's just do create trip. Okay, cool. So we have a trip here, events, restaurants. Okay, cool. So let's save the trip and save the activities. I think it would be nice if we could edit it, but okay. So far, I think the appearance of it is nice. I don't think it's super intuitive with how it works, but also I wasn't really specific about that. And we already have some problems here, and it's already letting you know, and if you'd like to try and fix it. But let's try to specify that a little more in terms of what we want to do. But it is cool how you can save these like cards. We could put Miami, we could put beach. Let's see, if we click activity, it just clears it up, and I don't think it saved it. And the other trip, it didn't even save. So there's an issue right there. Let's try to fix these problems first. Okay, so as far as fixing it, says I've made the following changes. Remove the inner form elements from activity form, restaurant form, event form. Okay, cool. And change the form submission logic to use the button clicks instead. Change the button types to button since they're no longer in the forms. Kept validation logic, but moved it to the click handlers. Maintain all the same functionality out with a cleaner structure. So I think from the perspective of a beginner, it is nice that it's making a lot of these suggestions to you. But if you've never really worked as a front-end developer or web developer, for one, this can still seem a little bit overwhelming. Now, granted, it is nice that it downloads everything, writes it out for you, and it really goes through a lot of trouble to troubleshoot it with you as well. And we're still just kind of like suggesting and looking at it, testing it, and it's getting built pretty quickly. That's pretty awesome. But I can definitely see this still being a little bit intimidating. But let's try out these changes, right? Let's put Cali. I'm not from California, but everybody goes there, so I just put that there. Activity name, hike, nice hike. So if we click activity, what happens? Okay, so it added it up here. So that's pretty nice actually. And what do we want it? A restaurant. We want, EK, fast food, whatever, 4 stars. And restaurant, we have that on here as well. Okay, so fix that for sure. Event, we just do concert. And okay, so we have these saved down here. Before I was just clearing them out. And if we do create trip, now it's asking us to fill out activity name. So it looks like you can either save these individually. We should be able to just do add trip, save it, or maybe not. All right, so let's try this for how we build the app. We'll say, actually, I want it to be an app where if I give it a destination and dates, it will look for things to do in that place for those days, as well as 2 places to eat per day, and also take into account my budget. So let's see. Now we could be a little bit more specific about AI, API calls, if we're using ChatGPT, if we're using, something like CrewAI, but let's just go from here and see what it does for us. If we go back to our little list, I would check off that it's going to be useful for user interfaces. It seems, even just looking at the homepage, that that's the main functionality of it, for it to be, web development, front development. So I would definitely give it a nice check on that. We still have these other ones to test out. Beginner friendly, I would say there's definitely one of the more beginner friendly ones in that it's running things for you, it's installing it for you. I know some of the feedback I've heard for other tools like Cursor is that it's helpful to have some development background, even though it's still easy to use. The learning curve for some people hasn't been super easy. So the fact that it runs a lot of the package installations for you, that's already pretty nice as well. But we'll leave that for later. So here, Responded said I've made key changes to create an AI-powered travel planner. Cool. So we didn't even mention AI, or maybe we did. Let's see. No, we didn't mention. So that's nice that I made that assumption or that decision to make an AI. I did OpenAI integration. That's super awesome to generate personalized travel recommendations. Added a budget field to consider cost constraints. Created an AI service that generates activities based on destination and dates, restaurant recommendations, special events. So pretty much what I asked for. And it looks like it went through and made these updates to each individual file. To use the app, you'll need to add your OpenAI key in the .env file. So that makes sense that you need an OpenAI key. Enter your destination, dates changes. Okay, cool. Click Get AI Recommendations to generate a personalized suggestions, review and modify suggestions as needed. Save your trip. The AI will consider your destination, travel dates, budget constraints, local events and activities, popular restaurants. Cool. So it looks like it really understood what I wanted. Let's go to plan your first trip. And we haven't put the API key, but I want to see what the errors looks like. Let's put Austin, Texas. And we're going to be there for a few days. Budget, we can leave it at that. And then we'll put Get AI Recommendations. Failed to generate recommendations. Please try again. If we look at the problem, invalid API key. Cool. So we do know we need to go to our env file, which is right here. And nice, this is where we need to put it. So let's get that real quick. And if you guys haven't gotten API keys before, all you have to go is go to platform.openai.com. And in your dashboard, you'll be able to go to here where it says create new secret key, and that's where you get an API key to use OpenAI services. Now this is separate from your $24 that you pay a month for ChatGPT, because these are basically credits to use nice technology for your app, so it's separate from it. You just go to create key and we just call it Bolt, and then we'll hit create secret key and paste it over there. So I pasted my key in that file that I was it where it said OpenAI key. So now we're going to try plan trip again, and let's do Get AI Recommendations. Okay, cool. So first we got the invalid API key. Now we got different 400 error. So it says invalid request format. So I don't want to worry about this error. So we'll clear these out and try again. And then we'll do attempt to fix. So I'm assuming it might be related to how it's making the API call. Notice there's an error with OpenAI API integration. The error indicates response format parameter. Okay, cool. So it says it changed it and it's running again. So let's try. I will say this does work pretty fast, generating recommendations. Okay, cool. So I'm wondering if it, right now it said that it put GPT 3.0 Turbo, 3.5 Turbo, which is an older, it's a pretty old model. So I'm wondering, I know there's been quite a few changes to the API documentation on how to use OpenAI's API. So if it's not checking the most up-to-date one, that might be an issue. But I will say it writes these files a lot faster than I can even read the recommendations, so that's pretty fast. So let's go here, try one more time. Okay, cool. So looks like it ran and gave me for activities, Silver Park, that's in Austin, sightseeing, live music. Cool. It gave me some interesting places to eat, and Trail of Lights, New Year's Eve celebration. Okay, cool. So I like this. This actually worked as far as the API call. Okay, so definitely a couple of things I would change, which again I just didn't specify. I would want the price somewhere on here. I would want to maybe be able to just click these to select them and then add to trip. But let's see if we're able to do create trip from this, and it still asks me to fill out the name. So let's just correct that real quick and say even after I click create trip and have added multiple activities or restaurants, it tells me to fill out blank spaces or fields. So it says, I'll help you fix the form validation issue and improve the user experience. The main problem is that we need to add proper validation before submitting the form and provide clear feedback to users. Cool. So I would say for this tool, for everything that it's doing and how quickly it does it, this would be a pretty useful tool to learn as well, because for anything that I request, its response usually starts with it, I guess, verbalizing what I'm trying to do in the proper format. So here it says, like, what I'm talking about is those blank fields, and here it uses the terminology form validation, which is probably what I should have said in the first place, but like I said, this would be a good tool to just learn from as well. So let's put Los Angeles. Let's do that. Get AI recommendations. So I've made several improvements, fixed form validation, added comprehensive form validation system that checks destinations required and not empty. So it's still expecting that maybe these is just a list. It's not necessarily an activity that I've added, but based on the feedback that I get from the AI recommendations, shouldn't I just be able to click them and add the activity or the restaurant or the event? So I'll put that. This is what I put. After getting the AI recommendations, I get some objects. I'm talking about these over here. I get these objects in my form. Should I just be able to click those and add the activity or restaurant or event after clicking it? I mention each one because that's what it says: activities, restaurants, events. After clicking it, then clicking its respective button, I really don't need the blank form fields. I'm talking about these at all if AI is giving me the options. Now there's some misspellings in there, there's some punctuation errors, some grammar errors, but this is AI, so I feel like I'm expecting it to understand. So again, super fast implementation. And it also seems very intuitive with the changes that I request and the changes that it actually ends up making. So let's do it one more time. And the only thing I'm afraid of is that I'm gonna run out of credits because I don't know. I think it's a few thousand per day that you're able to use on the free tier. Cool. So now it cleared out those forms. So that's nice. So let's do get AI recommendations. So now we got a problem, but that's probably me running out of OpenAI credits. It says fail to parse OpenAI response. Anyway, now the workflow is enter destination, dates and budget, get AI recommendations, click on the recommendations you want to add your trip, click again, remove them if needed, create the trip when you're happy with your selections. Okay, so let's try it one more time. But I do think, okay, cool. So we got these here, visit Griffith Observatory. Let's see, I want to hike. Okay, cool. I want to go to In-N-Out Burger, and let's see, auto show. So we click those, create trip. It hit them from us. Okay, so it looks like it did the opposite. Whatever we clicked, it removed. That's interesting, but I do like, I'm spelling it, put Los Angeles. We have these little tags, which looks super neat. We click it, we get more details on it, and that's pretty nice. So let's add another trip, right? I'm gonna go to Denver, Colorado, and for this trip we have $500. Get recommendations. So I don't want to go to the Botanical Gardens, I don't want to go to Union Station, I don't want to go to Snooze AM, and sure, we'll try this event. So now let's create trip. End date must be after start date. Well, I feel like it should have validated that before. Okay, cool. So now we have this trip, or these other trips, right? Different dates, different activities listed on here. And it's making the API call to OpenAI, and it was able to work through those errors. So that's a super big plus for me. I mean, if this was an app you want to promote, tell the people, you would want to have users sign in, and you need to have a database for that, or a database for storing all this data. So let's ask it that, right? We know we're liking this app, we know we're liking what we're building, so where do we go from this point on, right? So we'll literally just ask it, where and how are users supposed to sign in? Where and how is the data for the trips being stored? No, you have hit the rate limit. Please agree to keep chatting. That was so, I feel like we're barely getting traction on here. Man, I wish we could have gotten to test adding the database stuff to it, but we still made some good progress. I would say this is a pretty beginner friendly application. Now, of course, the more programming experience that you have, the better, but even just sending a request, in plain English, just very basic commands for it, it seemed like it was able to understand that and implement what I requested. So I would say yes, if you're trying to build something. Definitely would recommend this one for beginners compared to some of the more technical ones. databases. We didn't get to test that, but we should be able to test the deployment. I see this big blue button over here that says deploy, so let's try that. So it's gonna help us build and deploy, and we got an error, attempt to fix. So we're getting an error when we try to deploy, and it gives us details about that. If we click attempt to fix, it just runs and it runs. I'm wondering if that might have to do with the credits. Now, I didn't want to purchase it just yet, but for you guys, I'll bite the bullet. So that lets us go over prices. I don't know what this is. Interesting. Yeah, so they have the free tier, which we were on. I think that was only like 2,000 tokens per day, and then here they do based on tokens. So I'm assuming that's tokens of how much code it writes for you. So we have Pro, $20 a month, comparable to Claude, ChatGPT, Pro 50, and yeah, that's $50 a month. So you get more than twice as much for also a little bit more than double the price. So I guess that makes sense. And the yearly, yeah, you can either pay $50 a month, monthly, or yearly, $45 a month. And then these other ones, I'm not even gonna look at this. I don't think I'm that invested on it, but we'll just go ahead and upgrade to $20 a month. So pricing, I would say it's competitive. I didn't expect it to be cheaper than any of those other ones, but if it was something outrageous for the smallest tier, like $40, $50 a month, I probably wouldn't get it. And even the yearly doesn't make too much of a difference. I don't feel like I'd rather just try it out month to month, then commit to it and not like it later on. So let's go ahead and do the $20 one. All right, so we're on the Pro plan and tells us we have 10 million tokens left. I'll be checking on it as we continue to work through this to see if it lets you keep track of it. But yeah, let's continue with where we were at. So just going back to it, it looks like maybe, okay, yeah, so it resumed what it was trying to do with the deployment. I'm importing your StackBlitz project into Bolt. This may take a moment. So it definitely did some other stuff. I've successfully imported your project. I'm ready to assist you with analyzing and improving your code. Your project has been deployed to, okay, so it's a Netlify deployment. Let's click this link. Site not found. Cool. If you want to deploy this project to your personal account, claim ownership by visiting undefined and connect with Netlify. If you want to deploy this project to your personal account, claim ownership by visiting undefined and connect with Netlify. That's a little bit difficult for me to pronounce, but let's try it again, because if I click this link, it's not doing anything. Let's click deploy one more time. It was an error. So what is the problem? Attempt to fix here. Okay, so we got a similar message as last time. It says about our configurations. The deployment process has started. Once it's complete, you'll be able to access your application to the provided Netlify URL. So that's this right here. Since this is a front-end application that uses environment variables, you need to configure so this is the OpenAI key variable. So it's just telling us that we're gonna need to paste that on there again. Okay, so it's saying it's deployed. We were able to see that on here. Cool. To transfer this Netlify project to your own account, you can claim this URL. So I'm guessing Netlify, I haven't worked with that service before, but that's what they're using to deploy it, which is cool. But again, this was literally a one-click deployment. Of course, you would have to do and put that API key in there, but that's expected. That would be a little concerning if it was saving the API key within, the files, like the way we had set it up. But cool. I think that's a pretty big win for deployment. You could literally just start sharing that URL. So now the big one that is still missing is databases, right? How do we handle, the amounts of users, the sign-ons, the data for, the trips in those user accounts, because obviously maybe you log out, you would want to save that for later. So let's ask it one more time. What about users and users account and sign in? And how do we save the trips for each user? So we're not even going to say the word databases on here. We wanted to kind of come to that conclusion on its own, and right away it said, I'll help you with user authentication and data persistence. Okay, so it's going in the database route, and like I was saying earlier, it writes code faster than I can read this for you guys. So we'll use Firebase for authentication and Firestore for storing user data. So Firebase for sure is a Google product. Firestore sounds like it would be, but I haven't used that before. But right away it looks like it's implementing all of that for us. Now, because it's a different service, I'm wondering if we're going to need to, bring in that API key, similar like how we had to do with our OpenAI account, or if maybe like with the Netlify deployment, they already have some kind of partnership. But let's read this right here. Oh wow, so it's already the sign in with Google. So let's read this real quick. I've added user authentication and data persistence to the travel app using Firebase. Here are the key changes. Added Firebase authentication with Google sign-in, added Firestore database for storing trips, created protected routes that require authentication, updated the trip store to save trips to Firestore, added the login page for user management in the navigation bar. This app now requires users to sign in with Google. Cool, super easy. Most people use that anyway. Stores all trips in Firestore associated with the user who created them. Only shows trips belonging to the currently signed in user. Persists data across sessions, so if you sign in or out, you won't lose your trips. Has protected routes that redirect to login if not authenticated. So that's more of a security thing. So to use the app, now you have to sign in with Google. Your trips are going to get saved to Firestore or to a cloud. That's going to be your database. And you can access your trips from any device. And you can sign in whether you're done. So let's try signing in, see how that's working. So we do get this error, requested action is invalid, show problem, error signing with Google, pop-up block, custom data, Firebase error. So let's just click attempt to fix. Okay, cool. So I made some changes. It's telling us what to improve. So to use improve login, click sign in with Google. If pop-ups are blocked, you'll see a message. Okay, cool. So let's try that out. Okay, so I'm still getting the error. So I'm just going to try redeploying it. Maybe it says that it's a pop-up error, so maybe just doing it from the actual deployment link will get a better result. Okay, cool. So let's click it here. So we get the sign in with Google message. So we still get this error when we try to sign in, and that's happening here as well. So again, for something like this, I think another thing you could do if you didn't want to use up all your tokens is you can see for trying to fix this, it's working on this login page and you have access to all the files on here. So you could potentially get the error, copy the code, paste it into ChatGPT and ask it, since you're not going to get that rate limit on there. But I want to see if it says where we're at with the tokens. Okay, cool. So 9.8 million. So we've already used about, what would that be? 200,000 tokens. And we're still getting this error, which I think the implementation for the most part, it seems like it's almost there. And this pop-up error, I mean, that might be something with our browser. But let's find out. So we still get this requested invalid action error. So pop-up blocked. So how do we unblock pop-ups? All right, so I tried fixing the problem a couple more times because we kept getting the error. I assumed that it's something related with the API keys, because I did see in parts of it where it was generating the code, it seemed to be adding its own API keys. Now, I don't know if that's because of a partnership that StackBlitz has with Firebase or some of those products, but this is something that, despite the fact that we're getting errors, I'm really happy about. We get this message. It says, Bolt tried to fix problems 5 times, but failed. To prevent spending more tokens, you might want to try to fix them manually or roll back to a previous checkpoint instead. Now, I'm at the point where I was probably going to end up doing that anyway. But definitely, I think if you're a beginner using a product like this, you kind of have the expectation that it's gonna do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And depending on what your background is or how much you've worked with technology like this, when you get stuck, I mean, for one, of course, it's frustrated, but it's not super intuitive where to even begin to start breaking down something like this. Now, I do like the suggestion that it's telling you, hey, it's always wasting more of your money. Like, it hasn't been fixed, so, try a different approach. Because again, if you've barely paid for this, you're not really keeping track of the tokens. Sure, 10 million sounds like a lot, but even just with these couple of prompts, we've already used about 300,000 of those tokens. So again, we still have quite a few left over, but if you're not paying attention, you might run out. Whereas if you already have another subscription like Claude or ChatGPT, that probably would have been easier to help you figure out what the problem is, right? So even though we didn't get to set it up with the authentication and the sign-in, which again, that would require a little bit of more work on our part. This video was just to test out Bolt itself. Again, really happy with how it turned out. I'm going to give it a check mark for the databases and user sign-in, since it seems like it already has that built into it. But the beginner friendliness of it, I'm going to leave that open-ended, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Have you used Bolt before? Do you feel like it's an app that helped you build the things you want to build? Did you get stuck on? Do you have a preference for some of the other ones? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.